And I'll get to guessing game later. I, for me, stands for information. All of you, class 10, 12, and of course thereafter, there's so much information that you've gathered. But information alone is a little dangerous because it is not. I'll get to that term later. Because it's a little limited in terms of its scope. Information, what do you do with that information? Unfortunately, it leads to a lot of delusion as well, saying that I know because I've read, or because I've heard, or otherwise been informed, but that's only my first alphabet. So this magical equation of life carries on. So we have to add to that, or perhaps even multiply, another alphabet which begins with E. And I know most of you probably know this. Again, I'm not going to play the guessing game right now, I'll save it for later. It's a very important word which sadly comes with a little bit of time. It's called experience. So information alone has very limited appeal. Now these are my thoughts. You may think otherwise, and that's fine. Because collectively, of course, your collective intelligence is far more than anything I could ever come up with. So it's I into E. It's information into experience. You need to go through all of that for a fair length of time. And only then does this I into E become something that I think takes us through life fairly swimmingly. And it's a letter that begins with K. And we think we have it when we know I, but you really need the E to get to K. And we all know what K stands for, yes?
Go.
Sorry, knowledge? Okay, I got that. Thank you so much. So far, so good. You guys are, like I said, a sea of intelligence hitting me. Okay, so we got I, or into, I'll patent it later. K, so you bracket that. Great to have knowledge because that takes you forward. Helps you build your life, take good decisions, take the right decisions. What is right, who knows? But you find out, yes, that's not enough. So let's carry on with the equation. There's a very important word or concept in life that I feel, if added, leads to better decision making or better quality of life or better spaces in life. And that once again begins with E. Can I begin my little quiz show here? Maybe not. So another E is added on. And I don't know whether anyone of you heard me say this before, but if you have, I'll give you 5 seconds to come up with this second E.
What is it? What do you think it is? What?
Take a wild guess. Something, one word, and I'll move on. Effort. Not bad. Thank you. I can hear you, by the way, despite your masks. Okay. It's a word called, or a concept, an activity, called exposure. As you are to the brain right now, exposure. To me, that means a lot in life. So you have a lot of information, you have a lot of experience, but sometimes you can be doing the same thing again for 30 years. I mean, for instance, you could be watering plants for 30 years, a lot of experience. Maybe not with exposure, unless you water plants around the world, everywhere, different plants. You know, this whole concept of widening your horizons. So exposure to me is a very important word. I'm sure all of you, after you leave this wonderful fascinating journey, will get into arenas where there's a lot of exposure. Don't be afraid of exposure. You don't have to be sitting in that same little pond all your life. Go out there. It's not a scary world. It's a bright, beautiful world. And that has something to do with attitude, and we'll try and get to that if I remember later. So we've got I plus E brackets K plus another E. And all of that, if you bracket it together, equals the right-hand side of this wonderful equation that I believe to be one of the many secrets to living well. And what does all of this equal to is the magic letter. When I'm talking about leading your life with a certain degree of satisfaction. But what is this magic letter, and therefore the word that I'm looking for? Let me spend 10 seconds on this. Come on.
What do you think it is?
Sorry?
I don't know.
Say it. Say it. Don't be afraid.
What do you think it is?
Once in a while, I interrupted what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Why did you say that name?
Success. Well, it's a fabulous start. Not what I'm looking for, but because success itself has many meanings. And I'll give you my version of success in just a moment. If it doesn't really any harder, I'll take another couple of minutes. Okay, let's get to another letter, which is the letter I'm looking for, of the word.
Stress.
Don't let rain dampen your intellect. That a word, I mean, people this wonderful word, this world in a word called wisdom. I perceive what is wisdom? Who knows? Is there universal wisdom? Is there something written somewhere that you can read and say, now I'm wise? Now you have to go through all of this and lead to this wonderful space in our lives called wisdom. And it's not necessarily a function of time. I mean, people can be 80 and not, I beg everybody's pardon, particularly wise. People can be 18 and very wise. So this wisdom thing is a little difficult to grasp. Sort of almost there, but
Spoke in my nose, dude.
however, what wisdom does do is allow you to lead a life of satisfaction, perhaps success, of happiness, of joy, of all these wonderful things that we keep thinking are right in this life. But they come because we've achieved this wonderful space. We've gotten to this space where there's wisdom that surrounds us. We're wise, we're surrounded by wise people, and we look for that wisdom from other people as well. And yet, life doesn't end with wisdom. Because what does even wisdom lead us to? What are we going to do with wisdom? What are the couple of things, if you don't mind my share, my thoughts with you, what are the couple of things that wisdom should lead you to? Well, one thing is, to my mind, the wise know that the more they know, the more there is to know. So if that thought is not striking you, and if you suddenly sort of swell with pride and say, I know everything, I'm a big shot, I know what's going on, oh, trouble. Because you constantly learn more and more and more and more. Maybe 4% of our brain, I don't know, maybe more, maybe less, but there's so much more space to learn more. The second thing, of course, is perhaps even more important because it dictates how we lead our lives. And that, to me, is the wiser one gets, the more one learns the value of judging less. Because if you know that there is so much I still don't know, then perhaps you will realize, and why should I be so judgmental? And people who turn quickly into judgmental beings tend to make many mistakes. And only later realize, oh gosh, perhaps I should have said that, or I should have thought that, because I just didn't know enough. So please, in your lives, be less judging, because that is your relationship with others. If you do want to judge at all, please continue, always, continuous process, every day, every moment, to judge yourself. And when it comes to our self-realization, may I offer a word that I do, or a concept that I do very often, is that those who tend to do well on their own steam because of their own power, their own energy, are those who are brutally, not just honest, but brutally honest with themselves. Who am I really? And it's not easy because there's so much delusion around us, there's so much, right? So many other influences coming from various directions that sometimes it's difficult to know who one really is. So please spend as much time as you wish to introspect, to constantly figure out who am I really? Because if you can figure that out, and let me assure you, I still haven't. So it may come with time, but work at it. Figure out who you really are, because then you'll make less mistakes. Or you will go on paths which are more assured, because you've thought about it, you know who you are, you know what you can achieve. And of course, people talk about dreams, and you've got to have a dream, you've got to have passion and achieve, and all that's fine, but there's a thin line between all of that and delusion. So please,